Hi guys, welcome to another series lesson in the Advanced Woodscraft. I believe this is number 8. In this we're going to talk about haversack, haversack contents, how to carry a haversack. Little details that's going to make your life a little bit easier. Okay, let me give you a little bit of background. Haversacks have been around for hundreds and hundreds of years. There is also a term you're going to hear called possibles bag. Same basic idea. It was issued to soldiers in the militaries of the world back in the 16, 17, 1800s as a bag to carry your personal belongings in. So you had all your military equipment that you had to have. And this was a separate bag that you could carry your personal little things in that you needed, because everything else was military regulation and you couldn't have extra space. See? Possibles bag means possibly anything could be in it. Haversack, have your sack. Okay? And many times, a lot of the world militaries, it was little more than a sack with some sort of strap hook to it. Okay? But it was a way for soldiers and explorers and stuff like that to carry small gear close and quick at hand. In the past, pockets like we have on our clothing were not common. And so you needed some place to carry your fire kit, to carry your pipe, to carry your compass, you need, etc. And so they would carry them in one of these bags, like some form of this. Now, I was in living history for 25 years, where I did a lot of living history. I started out in the mountain man era wearing big, heavy leather shooting bags slash haversacks, and ended up back in pre-French and Indian War 1750s time period, progressing backwards. So I carried a haversack as part of my reenactment for 20 plus years. So I can tell you with 20 years experience of toting a sack on you like that they're not all made alike, and that there's certain things that make it better and certain things that make it worse. Okay? Now this is going to be true for whoever's haversack you get. I do make a haversack, but I'm not trying to say just my haversack. Whatever haversack you make yourself, you pick up from some reenactor, or you buy from somebody else, that's fine. But here's a couple of key points that I found make it easier. One, most people have the strap way too long. Okay? I like the strap at the longest to be set up about like this, where my elbow comes down about the top of the flap. Okay? Actually, this is a little long because I've got, now adjust. Okay, as you see, my elbow comes down at about, that allows me to easily grip the bag. If I'm going to be doing something, I got to jump and I don't want it to flop out, I can grip it like that. Also, I want it to sit like back here on my butt to be out of the way. Right here, where this case is where I'd usually be wearing a canteen. So I would lock it behind when I'm not using it. I still have full access to it back there. And I'm doing this left-handed, although if you prefer right, that's fine. You can just swap it to the other side. But I put something on my belt that I'm going to have a knife or whatever that I can lock it behind. So when I lean forward, it don't take off and come forward. Okay? And it'd be the same if it was on this side. But a lot of times I'll be wearing a sidearm or something on this side, being in the field, or some kukri or big belt knife on this side. And so I would just lock it behind it. So putting the haversack where it's not going to automatically swing to the front is a big thing. I should also have access where I can lift up and go into the bag one-handed to get whatever I need without having to take the bag off. I can also swing the bag to the front. Like with mine, I've got a top pouch that's a zipper. I can come to it, flip this back to the inside like that, unzip it to get to the stuff and zip it back up without dumping it all over the floor. Just like that. I'm hanging a knife with a soft shackle off of the strap for easy access. This would be, I'm not planning on doing a lot of knife tasks today, but I'm going to have a knife with me. I would hang it off the strap like that as a dangler. I have full access to it where I can get to it. I can easily take it off and put it on my belt. I can unhook the soft shackle and hook it to my belt if things change and I need more access to it. But at the same time, it's right there out of the way, and my hand naturally falls to it. At the same time, should I go to fall, it wants to point away from me. It's not something that's going to dig into me easily this way. So I'm more safety that way, and I'm always going to use a heavy leather sheath to keep it from coming into me should I fall. So therefore, I want it, like I said, back behind me. And so if I fall straight backwards, here's your spine. It's not on my spine. I don't want to have anything right here on my spine like a canteen or something that should I fall flat on my back, it's a fulcrum against my spine and could cause spinal injury. So I want this area of my back clear. Yeah, it's going to bruise the snot out of you if you hit on either side, true. But it's right there. That bone ain't going to give. And so some hard knot of some piece of gear right there could cause me damage. This way I've got that area open. Okay? If a strap is too long from the beginning, it's always going to hang down. It's just going to flop against you as you walk or swing to the front and the back. I want to shorten it up to reduce that. I also want it to kind of cup around the body rather than just being laying flat and sliding. Okay? If I shorten the strap up even more, let's say I've got to do something and I need to be able to hold on to this. I got to jump across this obstacle or whatever, or I'm about to go across something where I need to hold this tight. Say I'm going to go across the river, wade across the river. I tuck this up like this to hold it, and I use a stick to feel in front of me for a deep hole, and I wade across. That way if I did lose my footing and go under, this doesn't dump out or tangle me up. See, I'm holding it. So if I can shorten the strap up to tuck it up under my armpit, that can be a real advantage. Okay. Now let's talk about material. Wax cotton canvas or some waterproof material is preferred to keep my gear dry in the rain. But understand, that's going to be hot against your skin. So down here in my south where it's so hot and humid, I need something that kind of breathes. So I have gone with waxed canvas on mine because once it's, on you, it's not so bad, so to speak. It doesn't hold the heat as well as some of the nylons, Cordura, stuff like that. And they just seem to be a big sweat spot right there where it's up against you. Nothing breathes. So I wanted something that breathed. And so I went with it. Yes, it's waxed, it's waterproof, but it doesn't make that like plastic sweat spot, you know what I mean? And so I want whatever that I'm carrying to kind of be that way. Give me weather protection, be durable, well made, and at the same time not cause it to be just a burden to carry it. I want a strap that's wide enough and flat to wear comfortably with the perceived load. Also, how big the haversack is needs to be something that will carry all the accoutrements that I want to carry, plus a little extra, but not be this great big old huge piece of luggage that really should be a rucksack. And from time to time I see guys go get the biggest rucksack, the biggest haversack, and they will stuff their whole camp into it and then wonder why it's cutting into their shoulder horribly. Well, you've got the load that should really ride in a rucksack or a knapsack. You're carrying in a haversack. So yeah, it's going to dig into you. How much weight do I think should be in a haversack? Less than 10 pounds. Usually like 8 pounds. A gallon of water is 8 pounds, so something around that equivalent in weight. I should either find lightweight gear to fill it, or if I've got more stuff that I feel I need to carry, transition to a knapsack, which is something I'm going to carry on my back, or a light rucksack. And just put my haversack accoutrements where I can get to it. What do I need in a haversack? And we're going to do a ground dump and lay this out and talk about it in a minute. But my haversack should fit my needs, my environment, my personal usage. This is very true of you. You're in a different environment than me, your needs may be different. Suppose you live up north where it's 8 months of cool and only 4 months of warm. Or you live out west where it's bone dry. You may need more water or some other accoutrement than I don't need. Maybe you live down in lower Florida and you've got bugs unbelievable, and so you need a higher, you need to carry stuff to protect you, and so your haversack needs to reflect that. Okay? There is no one size fits all. There is a size that fits your needs. Create your needs and then find the size that fits it. But don't go overboard. Okay? Now, what I want from a haversack is I want the ability to make fire in any and all conditions. And we're going to talk about that in a minute. We're going to bring up my fire kit. 2, comfort. I want to be able to use this to carry something as a emergency sleep, like what I'm carrying is a hammock, and a comfort. When I'm just dead tired and I need to take a rest, I can quickly set up that hammock and be up off the ground to rest in the air to be cooler, etc. I also need some weather protection, a cover element. And so I carry a light tarp. What this is, and I will talk about this when we set it up in a minute, that is actually what One Wind Outdoors calls their footprint. It's a thing to put underneath a hammock and stack out. It's a 5x7 tarp is what it is. But it's meant for you to put it on the ground underneath a hammock and tarp set to have a clean place for your, your feet and your gear and etc. But I'm using it as a shelter system. I'm using it as a tarp to set up quickly for just me. It can also double as rain gear, because for me it is big enough for me to simply just drape it over my shoulders like a blanket like this and walk out. If it's going to be very bad inclement, I can drape it up over me, find a place to sit down and just wrap it around me and have an air hole to breathe out of, to hunker down. That's all I need, because my realistic needs are this. I am not planning on camping with this being my sole gear for camping, but I want that ability in an emergency. So I want enough gear here that I could spend the night in an emergency if I got trapped out for whatever reason with just what's in this haversack. I have a hammock to get me up off the ground and a place to sleep, and I've got a tarp to give me some weather protection. With those two, I can either improvise a ground shelter or I can make an improvised hammock shelter. That's my 2 shelter thing. I have the ability to make fire. I have more than one kind of blade. We'll show that in a minute. And I also have various cordages so that I can set up and create whatever I need from the field. I'm a woodscrafter. I take what I got to make what I need. Okay? And then finally, I want some ability to signal in case of emergency. So I have a signaling device in there for utilize. Now, let me put this down on the ground and we'll go through the contents. Okay, here's my haversack. On the outside of it, I have a bandana that I would normally wear around my neck as a way to block off mosquitoes and stuff like that from around my neck, or for a quick wipe for sweat, etc. That's this one. I have a top flap. Inside my top flap are my small gear that's the quick grabs that I need. So, I have a small knife. Now this is an open L carbon that I have turned into a razor sharp blade for a backup blade and for use for processing mostly food and stuff like that, where I need a very thin blade. This is not a pry bar and it weighs nothing, so that's why I'm carrying it. I could substitute, if I was going to be doing crafts, we're going out to the field and I'm going to be doing crafts, I may substitute something else like this WC Mini. A far more robust knife and a lot better for doing crafts and stuff like spoon carving and other woodcraft details. But it weighs a lot more than this. So for a daily carry, this goes. This will be dropped in whenever we're going to do those crafts. I will substitute this to have it for that endeavor. Likewise, the knife that I'm carrying on the outside, it's simply lighter. It's a capable knife, and it's got a small fire rod on it. But I would usually be carrying my big WC Blackbird as my belt knife with a much bigger ferrule rod on it for a general carry. This is, I'm not going to be doing a lot of bushcraft. This is, we're going to the field, and I may be doing any and all stuff, so I come prepared for this. This is just a general purpose knife to ride along with a haversack to do like bushcraft, and I can make a fire with it with the ferro rod, but it is one of redundancies of fire kit. Now, remember I said signaling. I carry a 3-foot square piece of bright orange, not quite 3 feet, about 24-inch, bright orange. I went down to the fabric shop, picked out, told them to cut me a yard, and made this. This is used as a signaling device, so I can signal people if I'm in distress at pretty good range. It also serves as just another form of cotton bandana for all of the above, but it's a quick and easily signaling device that can be used for that. So there's the knife. I have a very small first aid kit that I carry. You should always have some sort of small first aid with it. It's mostly just Band-Aids and a couple other stuff and some triple antibiotic ointment and stuff. With this and some other stuff I carry, I can take care of myself to get me back out to medical attention if it's bad, or to just take care of those little nuances in the field. I have a Exotech repair spool that is duct tape, sewing thread slash fishing thread, and inside I have a sewing needle and a couple of small hooks, and I have added to it the Viking pendant sharpening stone that you see everybody wearing around their neck. I just hooked it on to here, and I use this for maintaining the edge in the field. So I have supplied duct tape in case I have a bigger wound that this can't have. I can cut off a piece of bandana, put across it, and use that for a pressure bandage to get me out. I have a small, lightweight compass that I have checked that works well. All I'm needing this for is to keep me from walking in a circle. Remember, bushcraft navigation with nothing. I put myself in a box so I know all I got to do is walk in X direction to get out of whatever woods I'm in. And this takes care of that, where I don't have to fall back on other ways. I have some number 36 bank line. I have a donut of 550 paracord. This is raw cord to be cut up for whatever need I have. That's what these two are. I have another thing of number 36 bank line, but this one has been pre-made up into a series of jungle knots for quick assembly of various projects. I have a flashlight, also a signaling device, and it opens up to become a micro lantern that I can hang to illuminate a camp up enough to see to move around. Pretty quick, easy, long run time on a set of batteries. I carry a Unico eating tool in here that is a spoon, knife with a fork. That way I'm able to eat. This wad is soft shackles and twist ties already made up and ready to go that I can take these and utilize around the camp. Like where I just showed, one is being utilized right there to hold that on. I take it out of this loop, hook it onto there. Quick and easy, hook, unhook. I can hook gear to my pack, I can hook gear to my belt, whatever. Quick and handy, ready to go. And I reclaim this, I don't throw this away. I have this paracord for when I have to manufacture something. I have this already made up, so I don't have to keep cutting this up and reinventing the wheel. These of various sizes do the job. This little bag is solid full of bushcraft zip ties. They're just links of 550 cord that have already been cut and made into Canadian jam knots, bushcraft zip ties. And then they have been daisy chained, and they're different sizes. That one's about a foot or so long. This one's maybe 24 inches long. I can tell by the length of the braid about how big the final piece of cord is. They're hooked together like this so they don't tangle up. I just pull it and it comes back to full length and I can utilize it. This bag is full of it, so I have maybe a dozen or so of those in various sizes. The shortest one being like a foot long and the longest being 6 feet. I think I got 2 6-footers in there. That way I can anchor around big trees, whatever, to hang packs, whatever, but I'm going to reclaim this cordage whenever I'm leaving. So I don't have to keep, again, reinventing the wheel. I've already got it made up. And this keeps them organized so I know exactly where they're at and how to get to them. And finally, I have a tin in here with some of them pre-made up fire starting pucks, pre-ready to go. I will use these, and when the tin is finally empty, I'll utilize the tin for something else. That's everything in the top of the haversack. Of course, I still got room for more gear. But this is what rides in here as a standard load. It handles most of my needs for the quick. Now, main bag. Main bag, I have an ultralight, full-size hammock. This is 11 feet long with a ridge line. It's a fully capable of sleeping in hammock, and I will set this up for you in a minute. In the bottom is both of the suspension straps. It is not heavy. This one weighs like a pound or so, a little over a pound, and is therefore very compact and quick to carry. I can substitute this if I want to streamline even more and get rid of this and take one of my mesh hammocks that I have that wads up to the size of an apple or an orange and will do the same job. It doesn't have a ridge line on it. I like the ridge line. I have my complete fire kit, which we'll go into in a minute. And then in the bottom, I have my 5x7 tarp slash rain gear right there. Already set up with a ridge line. Already got 2 stakes so I can set it up very quickly. That's the entire thing. Weight on that is about a pound or something. So those two together, I would say, might make 3 pounds max. Add this into it, you're up now to about 5 pounds. All the stuff in the top and the knife and the sack itself, I'm still under 8 pounds. So it's not a burden to carry, and that's everything in the bag. So now I've got room to plug in other things as I needed for the given situation. Like I said, we will set those up so you can see them in a minute. But let's look at my fire kit. Let's talk about how this is going to give me even more. I've already mentioned in the top I've got those pucks that I'm going to utilize. And this is a leather roll top pouch made by StitchGear.com with a nice long tab so I can wrap around, and it rolls down tight and is relatively waterproof. I've been able to dump this thing and not worry about it. Now notice that the flap is bigger than the body. This allows me in wet conditions a place to sit down and process tinder on a dry surface if the ground all the way around it is damp and wet, and have me a dry place. Being leather, I can even ignite a tinder bundle on top of this and then pick it up and move it off and not worry about scorching the leather much. Okay, first in the bag, we have a lighter. It's completely wrapped up with duct tape and jute. It is pinned it so it cannot lose its fuel. I have a bellows tube to help me blow fires and keep fires going in damp conditions where they're just not wanting to get enough air to run. I have an Exotac lighter. Now this is the one, these are not cheap guys, I'm going to tell you right now, but I am very impressed with it. They act like a Zippo. Now you unscrew the bottom and you put lighter fluid in it just like a Zippo, but it has an O-ring so it doesn't leak out, unlike a Zippo. But when you take this and it's a hot day or whatever, assume that some of it has evaporated up the wick into here. So when you pull it out, do this for a second and dry it off. Then when you hit it, you got fire. light whatever you got to do, and then blow it out. Put the cap back on. Don't run this more than like a couple minutes because that O-ring will get hot and melt it. Other than that, it's rock solid. Now I filled this the first time and carried it and used it for 2 years before I had to refill it because I was going to do 5 seconds or less on a lighter. I got everything prepared, struck my lighter, immediately lit it, put the lighter out, and let the flame grow. I don't want to waste my fuel. This is the backup to that. This works sopping wet because it's completely enclosed. I don't worry about this getting wet. Also, that if it's damp, wet conditions, I'm not even going to try a friction or spark. I'm going to go strictly with a flame source for ignition. I have a nice block of fat lighter in here that I can shave off of to make shavings. This works even wet because I can just shave it down and get it dry and use that to make a dry tinder. I have another block of it. I have a scraper here that's got 4 90-degree edges on it. Again, so I can use it to shave with this to generate shavings. I can also use this for other tools, but it's 4 90-degree edges. If it's really damp and I need to have a really good striker for a ferrocerium rod, that 4 90-degree edges does that. I got that from Mr. Barnes out of School of the Woodsman, I believe it is, in the Carolinas. Woods Runner School, I believe. Down here in the bottom, I had somebody ask about this. I have a couple fire straws. All this is cotton that's been mixed with Vaseline and magnesium shavings and packed into a McDonald's straw for use as a waterproof fire starter. When I take this out, it's waterproof. I can simply cut it and hit it with the spark. It'll ignite. If I need to, I can pull a cap off, take a stick and split it and put that in the top of it, ignite it, and it'll burn like a candle for like 20 minutes. There's one of them pucks. And the rest of this is a bag of tinder. Bone dry, fine shaved tinder that I have packed down in there. Now the use of that is, this is the last ditch, so to speak. I will use my lighter or I will use my ferro rod to start fires. If I cannot find a readily available tinder source, that's when I go to these, those that I've already showed you in the top of the bag, and that handful of bone dry tinder in there to guarantee I have something to get the fire going with. Between those, I will get a fire going if I've done my job and got everything else right. So, there's one thing missing out of here that I should have in here, but I pulled it out and put it in another kit. I will replace it, and that is matches. I will have a small match safe in here with those lifeboat matches. Matches have a real place in this because matches, especially those lifeboat, are fire and forget. If I've got a lot of wind, I can get down there and strike that match and then just shove it into the tinder bundle, and it will keep burning, so I can shield the wind or manipulate it to get it to burn. Something that's hard to do with a lighter, because if the wind's blowing it out, I can strike one of those lifeboat matches and shove it into the tinder and let it burn it that way. That's one time when a match is actually an advantage over a lighter. And then with this, I will roll this up. Whatever type of container you put your fire kit into, it should be able to withstand a dunking for at least a couple of minutes underwater. If it can't, then you do not have a good enough container. It has to hold that so that you know that you're not going to slip, fall in the creek, fall in the whatever, and not have the ability to make fire because everything's wet. Quick and easy. Now, let me set up the tarp and hammock and show you how that component of the shelter system works. Okay, here's the shelter set. And for those who've already watched this series, you know what a quick deploy tarp is. Well, that's what this is. First out is the end of my ridge line. And for this to be small, I'm using, I think it's a 150-pound test saltwater fishing line. Very slick and works well for this. There's a bowline in the end of it. I'm going to go to the tree about where I want to hook up to. I'm going to come around, go over the top, come around to the side, and I'm going to put 3 big loops up and over and tucking and coming back over. That is a timber hitch. Pull it till it's tight and bear down so it locks in place. Now, I pull it out of the sack. Like that. Take the bag, stick it in my pocket so I don't lose it. I take the 2 stakes that already have line on it, stick them in my pocket. I drop the tarp, boom, and I take my ridge line that I have coiled and I walk over to the other point so it spirals out, as you can see. When I get over there close, I'm going to put me a trucker's hitch into it. Okay, I got my ridge line up. Now I grab and slide that prusik out to where I want. Slide the other one in the opposite direction. They will pull against each other. I think I want to center it up a little bit more that way, so I'll slide this one first. Walk to this end and pull it tighter, just like that. It has 2 loops already made into it for anchoring it to the ground to be a ground cloth. It is a 5x7. I take my first tent stake, and I take the bottom left corner, I take the loop and go through that loop on the thing, push the bank line through it, take the stake, run through that loop, so it's just a lark's head, pull it out tight, take her down to ground level, push it in the ground, pull out my pocket the other one. And voila, we have a shelter. Get you in a little closer. More than big enough for me to stretch out underneath. Waterproof sil nylon, coated, grommets and tie-outs on down both lengths of the top and bottom so I can stake it out with additional stakes that I'd manufacture on site to the back. I can drape this around me like a blanket. I can put it up over my head and just hunker down, or I can set it up as a lean-to right quick. I can also put this over the ridge line of my hammock I'm about to show you and have it as a sunshade to give me a little bit of UV protection. Not much. None of these sil nylons do a good job of that. Actually, the reusable space blanket with that shiny side facing out is a far better choice in the summertime to try to get UV protection. But for a little bit of dew, dampness, rain, or inclement weather, this works my needs just fine. And here is my hammock set up, my ultralight that rides on my Haversack. It's about 10 feet long, has a ridge line up here that I can drape my tarp over and then stake out the 4 corners in order to have a modicum of coverage. That tarp is not quite long enough to length for that. Because of that, I'm not out here for rain, okay? But this hammock serves more than one purpose. One, it's a hammock. It's a place to get me up off the ground so that I'm not in the critters when I stop to take my meal or I just need to rest. I can have it up or down in 5 minutes. And so it's a quick way for me to utilize. In an emergency, I can sleep out here with it while utilizing that tarp as a lean-to, set it down low to the ground, the lean-to, and then a fire out in front of it. I can utilize that. In rain weather, I will simply use the tarp to form a ground shelter if it's going to be rain and I can't get out of it, and set up a ground shelter with it where I'll make me up a debris bed. This can serve as a debris bed because I can take this large hammock body right here, which has little loops along the edge of it, and I can fill it full of debris and then pull it together that wide full of debris and go through one to the one on the other side and pin it to the ground and have a browse bed with that, using the tarp as a rain thing. So between those two, I have 3 shelter possibilities. I can have just a hammock with a sunfly. I can have a hammock down low to the ground with a heat reflector to my back, that tarp, and a fire in the front. Or I can use the hammock as a browse bed and a true ground pounder with that to the back if I'm caught out and I need to do that. So there's 3 different shelters I can make out of that one configuration, as well as that 5x7 tarp can also be turned into other configurations, like a kind of awkward plow point that I can get into. I can enclose the sides more by being it like a forester tent and things like that. There are multiple uses from a simple small tarp. Yeah, it's kind of small. I'm not planning on camping. This is the Haversack shelter system. It is a comfort system that may be pressed in time of need into a camping system. See, if I'm going camping, I'll bring a bigger tarp and a bigger hammock, etc. I'll transfer over to a knapsack to have food, accoutrements and stuff to camp out for 2 or 3 days. The Haversack is for the might happen supplies and for my everyday need. And so that's the difference in advanced Woodscraft, is recognizing the role of what this simple bag does for you. That it's not just a catch-all. It is not. It is my emergency survival kit. It is my fire kit. It is my emergency shelter set, and it provides me with the comfort items I need and the tools I need when I'm in the field practicing skills to have a convenient way to carry it. That's the advanced part. It's not just a catch-all. It's not just a do-all. It is a focused piece of kit that should reflect what your needs are, what you require, and what you have in your environment that you've got to take care of. That is where you need to go with it. Hope you've enjoyed this, guys. Hope you've enjoyed this series, and I've got more coming up. Next, we're going to talk about a knapsack, or one step up, where I'm just doing an overnighter. What's the minimum I can get away with, where I'm going to be utilizing the basic contents of the Haversack, but I want to upgrade just a little bit. And that's the idea of a knapsack. And then we'll go for a rucksack, which is even bigger, and we're doing 3, 4, 5 days of camping. And then finally, the big bag and why we utilize it. But that's coming up in Advanced Woodscraft. Thank you very much for all your support, and please give me some comments or something down there. Tell me what you think of it. Love to hear from you. Till next time, guys, I'm Blackie wishing you safe journeys. Have a great day, guys.